Good morning, dear students. Today we will discuss about the components of environment. So let's start our today's lecture. The environment can be divided into four major components, which are atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. Atmosphere is the largest component of environment, and it deals with the presence of different kinds of gases such as nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, organ, etc. Atmosphere exchanges energy and matter within the sphere as well as between the other spheres of environment. So we know that the gases are not uh, static; they are dynamic and they move from one place to another place. So whenever there is movement of gases from one location to another, so this means that the matter has moved from a place to another within the atmosphere. So that is the exchange of energy or transfer of energy from one location to another location in the atmosphere. And we also know that number of gases they reach to the different components of the environment. For example, carbon dioxide is taken up by the plants who are a part of another component of environment which is called biosphere. So whenever this happens, then there is exchange of energy in the form of carbon dioxide from atmosphere to biosphere. Number of gases also get dissolved in the water present in the surface water bodies. So when oxygen and carbon dioxide gets dissolved in the water, then there is exchange of energy in the form of these gases from atmosphere to the hydrosphere, because water is a component of hydrosphere. So the energy and matter will keep on moving from atmosphere to the different components of environment. The second component of environment is called hydrosphere. As the name indicates, hydro means water. So this component deals with the water in any form. It consists of water vapors, snow, ice, etc. Like the atmosphere, hydrosphere also exchanges energy and matter within the hydrosphere from one location to or one place to another place, and also from hydrosphere to the different components of environment. When the river carries water from a glacier to the ocean, then there is exchange or transfer of energy from glacier to the ocean in the form of water. So when the water gets evaporated in the form of water vapors and reaches to the atmosphere to form clouds, at that time there is a transfer of energy from ocean to the atmosphere or from hydrosphere to the atmosphere. So this is how the energy and matter transfers within hydrosphere also and from hydrosphere to other components. The third component of environment is called lithosphere, and it deals with the solid part of earth, which is soil or rock. The likewise exchanges energy and matter within the sphere and also among the other spheres. So the soil, which is a component of lithosphere, it contains number of nutrients and minerals which is taken up by the green plants. Soil is a part of lithosphere and green plants are a part of biosphere. So whenever such uptake takes place, then the energy and matter gets transferred from lithosphere to the biosphere. So in this way, the minerals and nutrients from the soil gets dissolved with the flowing water, and it can reach to the oceans, rivers, and ponds. So in such cases, there is transfer of energy and matter from lithosphere to hydrosphere. So in such way, all the spheres will keep on exchanging energy and matter from uh, their area, their domain to the other segments or components of environment. The fourth and the last component of environment is called biosphere, and it is related with the living organisms. And the biosphere includes green plants and different animals as well as human beings. So all the living entity on this earth is a part of biosphere. Biosphere also exchanges energy and matter within the component as well as from biosphere to the other components of environment. The biosphere is the smallest component of environment, but the maximum transfer of energy and matter will takes place in the biosphere compared to the other components of environment, because there are so many agents or the living organisms which are part of biosphere and which are actively participating in transfer of energy and matter. So it is also known as central pump or central heart of the environment, because it pumps out energy from biosphere to the other components of environment. So in nutshell, we have four components of environment, which are atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. And now we'll discuss one by one about these components in detail. So I will start with the atmosphere, which starts from the ground surface and is extended up to certain kilometers vertically on this earth. So if you look at the entire area of atmosphere, it can be divided into certain layers from ground surface up to certain kilometer altitude or height. So we'll discuss about all those layers which are a part of atmosphere one by one. The first layer of atmosphere is known as troposphere, and this layer starts from the ground surface and is vertically extended up to an altitude of 11 km. So the troposphere is the first layer of atmosphere, and it is a stretch of 11 kilometers on an average. The height of troposphere is not same throughout the different locations on this earth. For example, if you would like to measure the height of troposphere at the equatorial region, then this troposphere will be vertically extended up to 16 kilometers in that region. But if you reach to the polar regions and try to measure the height of a troposphere layer of atmosphere, then it will end up at an altitude of 8 kilometers. So there is a great variation in the range of troposphere at different locations on this planet. We'll discuss that why this variation is there in this layer. First of all, we'll discuss some unique characteristics of this troposphere. The 80% of the air mass is present in troposphere. Out of the total air mass of this planet, which is near about 5.5 trillion tons, the 80% of air mass is within the troposphere. So you can say that most of the air is present in the troposphere. And the gases which are available in the troposphere are nitrogen, which is present in maximum concentration, near about 79%. Then we have oxygen as second highest concentrated gas in the troposphere, with its concentration of 21%. Then we have carbon dioxide, that is 0.03%, and traces of argon. Apart from that, troposphere can also have the presence of water vapors during the cloud formation period. So this is the composition of gases in the troposphere. The average temperature on the ground surface is near about 25 degrees Celsius. And if you move up in the troposphere from 0 kilometer to its maximum range, that is average 11 kilometer, you will notice that temperature will keep on decreasing. As we move up in the troposphere, temperature decreases down, and this temperature decreases down in a uniform pattern. Means at every 6.5 kilometer, the temperature will drop sorry, at every 1 kilometer altitude, the temperature will drop by 6.5 degrees Celsius. So if you measure temperature at the ground surface, and if you measure temperature at an altitude of 1 kilometer from the ground surface, the temperature what we measured at ground surface would be 6.5 degrees Celsius more than what we would measure at 1 kilometer altitude. So it will decrease down at every 1 kilometer, and the rate of decrease is more or less constant, that is minus 6.5 degree Celsius decrease. So on an average, if you measure temperature on the topmost region of the troposphere, it gets reduced to minus 56.4 degrees Celsius. So that is the range of temperature in the troposphere from 25 degrees Celsius to minus 56.4 degrees Celsius. Now, why this happens? That why temperature decreases as we move up in the troposphere? We know that temperature is because of the trapped heat of sun rays, which is coming from the cosmic world. The sun rays, when enters to the atmosphere, then those sun rays are stopped or trapped by the gas molecules which are present in the atmosphere. The troposphere has maximum concentration of these gas molecules, or you can say that the gas clouds are very dense in troposphere. So the maximum sun rays are trapped in the troposphere. And if you see the concentration of these gases uh, with respect to the altitude or the height, the maximum concentration of gases is present near to the Earth's surface. As you move up, the density of these gases will keep on decreasing. So this means that more and more heat will be trapped by the gas molecules which are in abundant at the ground surface. That's why we have highest temperature at ground surface. So as you move up, because the concentration or the density of gas molecules are is decreasing down, the trapping of heat will also be low. In that case, the temperature at that region will also be less than what we have seen in the down altitudes. So because of these regions, as we move up in the troposphere, temperature decreases down, and it decreases in a uniform fashion. The rate of decrease of temperature with the height is known as environmental lapse rate, and it is minus 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer altitude, as I had discussed before also. So that was all about the troposphere, very important layer of atmosphere, because human beings, all the living entities, they are in direct contact with this layer of atmosphere. The oxygen which we require for breathing is taken up by the oxygen of troposphere. The carbon dioxide that is taken up by the plants for photosynthesis is also present in this troposphere. So this layer is very important layer of the atmosphere, which supports the existence of life on this planet. Now, above the troposphere, there is a transitional layer which is of 9-kilometer altitude. It will start from 11-kilometer height and will end up at an altitude of 20 kilometer. And this layer is known as tropopause. Actually, tropopause is not the main layer of atmosphere, but this is the region which separates two major layers of atmosphere. The first one is troposphere. The next layer, sorry, lies above the tropopause. So it's an intermediate layer, or it can also be called as a sandwich layer, which is situated between two major layers of atmosphere. The characteristic of tropopause is that temperature remains constant in this layer throughout the height. See, from the bottom to the top most region of the tropopause, the temperature will be more or less constant. Why the temperature is constant, we'll see when we'll discuss about the next layer. The next layer of atmosphere is called as stratosphere. All of us know very well about this layer. This is the layer which is also known as ozone layer because of presence of ozone in this particular layer. Ozone is the gas which protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays. So when sun rays enters to the Earth's atmosphere, these sun rays enter in different wavelengths. So ultraviolet rays are the short wavelength rays and their penetration power is very high. Sorry. So these ultraviolet rays are thus harmful for the living organisms because if these ultraviolet rays reaches to the region where living organisms including human beings, animals and green plants are present, they can uh, they can penetrate deeply the tissues of these living organisms and they can thus cause problems to the genetic makeup of all the living organisms. They can also cause different types of diseases such as skin cancers among the living organisms. So these harmful ultraviolet rays are not required and the stratosphere layer absorbs all these harmful layers all these harmful rays, ultraviolet rays, and in this way it filters out the harmful rays of the sun. So it is also known as ozone layer. The stratosphere, in the stratosphere, if you try to monitor the composition of gases in the stratosphere, so you can find both oxygen as well as ozone in this layer. So what actually happens that we have ozone in this layer, we'll see it now. Firstly, the stratosphere is the layer which comprises of 19.9% of the air mass of Earth. So 80% is occupied in troposphere and 19.9% is occupied in stratosphere. So this sums up to 99.9%. So we can say that almost most of the gases are present in these two first layers of atmosphere, which are troposphere and stratosphere. In the stratosphere, the oxygen gas molecules are also present. So when ultraviolet rays will strike these oxygen gas molecules, because the penetration power of ultraviolet ray is quite high, so these rays contain sufficient heat to break the bond between two oxygen atoms. And when this happens, the oxygen gas gets broken into oxygen free radicals. These oxygen free radicals are very reactive, they are unstable, and whenever this happens, the oxygen free radical immediately will combine with the oxygen gas molecule which is available next to it and it will form ozone. In the next movement, this ozone gas molecule will also get broken by these ultraviolet rays into oxygen gas molecule and oxygen free radical. Means reversible reaction of this will happen. So all these processes keep on occurring in the stratosphere. As a result of that, most of the ultraviolet rays are consumed in breaking these gas molecules into their free radicals. So this is how the stratosphere filters out harmful ultraviolet rays. Because a lot of ultraviolet rays are being absorbed in the stratosphere. This means that whatever heat of these sun rays is present in those ultraviolet rays, all that heat will be trapped by the gas molecules of the stratosphere. And this means that the temperature of the stratosphere should be high. So in the stratosphere, if you look at the temperature trend, the bottom layer or the region of the stratosphere has a temperature of minus 56.4 degrees Celsius. And as you move up in the stratosphere, the temperature will keep on increasing because most of the ultraviolet rays are absorbed at the upper region of the stratosphere. So the heat is more in that region. As a result of that, temperature increases. So as we move up in the stratosphere from bottom to the top, the temperature increases. It is just reverse of what we saw in the troposphere. In the troposphere, as we were moving up, the temperature was decreasing down. In the stratosphere, as were moving up, the temperature is increasing. So with respect to the temperature, these two layers behave differently. Tropopause is present between these two layers, which has a different pattern of temperature. That's why the temperature of tropopause is almost constant because it takes heat from the stratosphere and coldness from the troposphere. As a result of that, it has more or less similar temperature across the entire range of this tropopause. So that was all about the stratosphere, which is second layer of atmosphere. It starts from 20-kilometer altitude and ends up at an average altitude of 50 kilometer. It's a layer of 30-kilometer stretch. Above this, again we have an intermediate layer which is known as stratopause. The length of stratopause is 9 kilometers. Starting from 50-kilometer altitude, it ends up at an altitude of 59 kilometers. The characteristic features of stratopause are more or less similar to the tropopause. It is also considered as an intermediate layer, and temperature is also constant in stratopause. Means the bottom layer of stratopause will have 5 degrees Celsius temperature, and also the topmost region of stratopause will have more or less similar temperature. Above the stratopause, we have third main layer, which is called mesosphere. It starts from 59-kilometer altitude and ends up at an altitude of 80 kilometers. Mesopause is considered as the most coldest layer of atmosphere because of very less availability of gases in this layer. It is termed as the coldest layer. The temperature at the bottom in mesosphere is 5 degrees Celsius, and as we move up in the mesosphere, the temperature decreases with increase in altitude. So the topmost region of mesosphere has a temperature of minus 90 degrees Celsius. So this is the coldest layer of atmosphere. So what we saw that every consecutive layer of atmosphere is behaving differently in terms of the rate of change of temperature. Troposphere has temperature decreasing temperature from uh, lower altitude to higher altitude. Stratosphere has increasing temperature from lower altitude to higher altitude, and mesosphere again show the similar pattern of temperature change or variation what we saw in troposphere. The temperature will decrease with increase in height or altitude. So very less concentration of gases are present in mesosphere because 99.9% of air mass is present in troposphere and stratosphere. And because of this reason, this mesosphere is the coldest layer, or the temperature reaches very low in mesosphere because there are no more gas molecules available to trap the sun rays. So above the mesosphere, then we have next intermediate layer, which is known as mesopause, and the altitude of mesopause is 9 kilometers. And above it, the fourth major layer is known as thermosphere or ionosphere. This layer has two names, thermosphere and ionosphere. We call it ionosphere because whatever gases are present in this layer, all these gases are in the ionic form, such as NO2 plus, N2O plus, NO plus. The gases are in ionic form. We call it thermosphere because if you measure temperature at one specific location at any moment in the thermosphere, you may feel the temperature to rise as high as 1200 degrees Celsius. But if you physically reach to this layer, you will not feel that heat as 1200 degrees Celsius because the gas concentration is very scattered or very low in thermosphere. So the location where certain patch of gases are present, if those gas molecules trap the short wavelength rays coming from the sun, then the heat of that solar photons can be felt in that particular location because the density of gases are very low. So uniformly that high temperature cannot be felt across the entire region of thermosphere. So this is the layer where gases are present in ionic form, and it provides a benefit to the mankind that these gas molecules helps in uh, enabling the communication on earth. So whenever radio waves are sent from one location uh, on earth, these radio waves reach to the thermosphere, and after striking to these ionic gas molecules, they get reflected back to the another location. So another location where the radars can catch those radio waves. So communication is only possible because of presence of these ionic gas molecules, which help in reflecting the radio waves which are coming from one location to the another location on this earth. So it help in communication. The thermosphere is extended up to an altitude of 500 kilometers, and above this we have exosphere, which is not a definite layer of uh, environment or earth because it connects us to the cosmic world. So the four major layers of atmosphere are troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, and thermosphere. So that was all about the atmosphere and its different layers. So now we'll talk about the hydrosphere, which deals with the water. We know that nearly 70% of Earth's area is covered with water. And if we look at the distribution of water on this Earth, then you may see that we have water in two forms. First is saline water, which is mostly present in the oceans, and it contributes to the 97.5% of the total available water on this earth. Then the next category is of fresh water, which is only 2.5% of total available water on this earth. So we have water as saline water, which consists of very high concentration of salts in it, and we have fresh water, that is only 2.5%. So saline water can be seen in oceans, and there are certain salty lakes also where you may find the saline water, but most of the saline water is present in the oceans. So if we further look at the fresh water, the fresh water is in three forms. First is in the forms of ice caps at glacier and polar regions. Then next form of fresh water is groundwater, which is present at certain kilometer depth uh, in the ground. Then the third category is surface water, which can be seen on the surface, such as water in the rivers, ponds, lakes, streams, etc. Out of the total fresh water, 68.6% of it is present in the glaciers and in the polar region in the form of ice caps. Near about 30.1% of the entire freshwater is present as groundwater, and only 1.3% of fresh water can be seen as the surface water. So most of the water is present either in the form of ice caps or in the form of groundwaters. So that was about the distribution of water on the planet Earth. Now we'll talk about lithosphere. We know that nearly 30% of Earth's area is a landmass, and it consists of soil as well as rocks. Now, if you look at the structure of Earth, the Earth from surface to its center can be divided into three layers. The outermost layer of Earth is known as crust, which is which starts from 0 kilometer and is extended up to a depth of 100 kilometer. So crust is the outermost layer of Earth, which is solid in nature, and its range is 0 to 100 kilometers. The solid surface of Earth is known as crust. There are two types of crust on this planet. The first is continental crust, and another one is known as oceanic crust. The rocks and soil which is present on the land is known as continental crust, and the rocks which are present at the bottom of the ocean is known as oceanic crust. So the crustal part is called as lithosphere. It is the solid outer layer of Earth, and it comprises the crust and the top portion of upper mantle. Mantle is the second or middle layer of Earth. The lithosphere is splitted into the tectonic plates. The entire lithosphere is not a single landmass, rather, it is divided into certain plates which are known as tectonic plates. Then below the crust, we have the middle layer, which is known as mantle, and it starts from 100-kilometer depth and is extended up to a depth of 2,900 kilometers. The upper layer of mantle is known as asthenosphere. Asthenosphere is the partly molten and partly solid rock layer that the hard lithosphere, or you can say tectonic plates, floats on. So the mantle is actually the solid or semi-solid in state, and all the lava that we see during the eruption of volcanoes actually comes from this mantle region. Now, if we talk about the continental crust is made up of silicate material. The rocks of the continental crust are low density igneous rocks, and these are actually the rocks which are cooled from the magma. The average thickness of this continental crust is from 30 to 50 kilometers, and these continental crusts are thicker than oceanic crust, but the density of continental crust is less compared to the oceanic crust. The oceanic crust is more denser compared to the continental crust. Now, talking about the oceanic crust, it is mostly made up of basaltic material. These are also called basalt rocks. The oceanic crust is actually high density igneous rocks. The thickness is on an average 6 to 8 kilometers. These are thinner and denser compared to the continental crust. So, talking about the next layer, that is mantle, near about 50% of the Earth's lithosphere is occupied by the mantle region, and the temperature in the mantle region is quite high compared to the crustal region. The mantle region or mantle layer ends up at a depth of 2009 km. It is semi-solid in nature. Below the mantle region is the core region, the inner layer of Earth, and this core region is further divided into two parts. There is outer core, which is liquid in nature, and it starts from a depth of 2900 kilometers and is extended up to a depth of 5100 kilometers. Outer core is liquid in nature, and below the outer core is the inner core, which is purely solid in nature. It starts from a depth of 5100 kilometers and is extended up to a depth of 6378 kilometers. So the distance from surface to the center of Earth is near about 6378 kilometers. In the next slide, we'll talk about the composition of these layers and their state as well. So this table tells us about the properties of crust, mantle and core layers of the Earth. The crust has a density of 2.5 gram per centimeter cube. The temperature of crust is 0 degrees Celsius. The composition is rock. It is composed of rocks, which are mostly granite rocks, and it is solid in nature. Then the middle layer of the earth is called mantle. The density is 5 gram per centimeter cube. The temperature of mantle goes up to 1000 degrees Celsius. The minerals which can be found in the mantle region are magnesium, iron, aluminium, silicon, as well as oxygen. It is semi-solid in state. Then we have outer core. The density is 10 grams per centimeter cube. The temperature increases up to 3700 degrees Celsius. The major minerals are iron, nickel, as well as sulfur, and the state is liquid. The inner core has a density of 13 gram per centimeter cube. The temperature goes up to 4300 degrees Celsius, and it is solid, made up of solid iron, and the physical state is solid. So what we saw through this table, that as we move from surface to the center of earth, the density of the material increases. The crustal region has a density of 2.5 gram per centimeter cube, and it increases up to 13 gram per centimeter cube at the inner core. Temperature will also increase from surface to the center. The pressure will also increase from surface to the center. So that was about the properties of crust, mantle and core layers of earth. Now we'll talk about the fourth component of environment, which is known as biosphere, and we know that bio means living. So sphere of living entities. It is composed of all the living organisms, including plants, animals, microorganisms, etc. Biosphere is the smallest component or sphere of environment, but it is characterized by maximum transfer of energy and matter. The classification of the living organisms in the biosphere can be into three categories. The first type of living organisms which are found in the biosphere are producers. These are those living organisms who can manufacture their food by their own. The producers can further be subdivided into two subcategories. The first subcategory is known as phototrophs. Phototrophs includes all the green plants. The green plants can synthesize their food with the help of sunlight, carbon dioxide, water by the process of photosynthesis. So they are kept under this subcategory. The next category of producers is called as chemoautotrophs, and it includes certain specific bacteria such as sulfur oxidizing bacteria, sulfur reducing bacteria, nitrifers, denitrifers, which with the help of certain chemical reactions inside their body can synthesize their food by their own. So The producers include phototrophs as well as chemotrophs. The next category of living organism is called as consumers. Those living organisms who cannot synthesize their food by their own, and they are dependent on other living organisms for meeting out their food demands. The consumers can further be subdivided into three subcategories. The first category is herbivores, and it includes the plant eaters, all those animals who feed on the green plants and consume the green plants as a food. The herbivores may include rabbits and squirrel, goats, sheep, cows, etc. Then the second category under consumers is carnivores. These are also known as flesh eaters or meat eaters. They feed on other animals for meeting out their food demands. And carnivores includes snakes, lions, tigers, jackals, foxes, etc. The third category of consumers is known as omnivores, those living organisms who can feed on both plants as well as the animals. The examples in this category are human beings who can feed on both plants as well as animals. So that was all about consumers. The third category of living organisms is decomposers, and it includes certain bacteria, fungi, and some actinomycetes uh, who feed on the dead and decayed material. So decomposers will always feed on dead and decayed material. They degrade the complex food material or organic matter present in the decayed uh, material and convert it into simpler nutrients and minerals and consume it as a food. So that was the classification of living organisms in the biosphere. So this was all about the components of environment. In the next lecture, we'll talk some more topics related to the unit 1. So that was all about today. Thank you.